You can't prove anything. My wife smirked when I confronted her about him. 10 minutes later, an unknown number sent me a photo with the caption, "Friendship goals." But that picture was just the beginning. What I discovered next wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy that went deeper than I ever imagined. And everyone I trusted was involved. My name is Matthew Pierce. I'm 41 years old, and I own a manufacturing plant in Raleigh, North Carolina. We make industrial components, precision parts for agricultural equipment. Nothing glamorous, but steady work that pays well. I built that business from a two-man operation in a rented garage to 40 employees and contracts across 3 states. I'm the kind of guy who shows up early, leaves late, and believes a handshake still means something. That's probably why I didn't see it coming. My wife, Sabrina, and I have been married for 12 years. She worked as an HR manager at some boutique marketing agency downtown, the kind of place where everyone called meetings sinks and wore designer jeans on Fridays. She was good at her job, confident, articulate, the type who could defuse a workplace dispute with a smile and a carefully worded email. I admired that about her once. It started small. New workout clothes. Later hours at the gym. She joined this premium fitness club 6 months ago, said she needed to take her health seriously, and I supported it. Why wouldn't I? Marriage is supposed to be about encouraging each other, right? But then came the phone call she'd taken another room. The screen she'd tilted away when I walked past. The way she'd smile at messages I wasn't allowed to see. When I finally asked her about it, just casually over dinner, she didn't even blink. "His name is Derek," Sabrina said, cutting into her chicken like we were discussing the weather. "He owns the gym. We talk sometimes after my sessions." "About what?" I asked. She shrugged. "Nutrition. Training plans. Life stuff." Life stuff. That phrase sat in my chest like a stone. 3 weeks ago, I came home early from the plant. A supplier shipment got delayed, and I figured I'd surprise her, maybe take her out for lunch. But when I pulled in the driveway, I saw her through the kitchen window, leaning against the counter, phone pressed to her ear, laughing in that way she used to laugh with me. Her whole body was relaxed, open, like whoever was on the other end had just said the funniest thing she'd heard all year. I walked in quietly. She didn't notice me at first, too absorbed in her conversation. I know, she was saying, her voice low and warm. "He's clueless. Completely clueless." She turned and saw me standing there. For half a second, something flickered across her face, but it vanished as quickly as it came. She ended the call, set the phone down, and smiled. "Hey, babe," she said. "You're home early." "Who was that?" I asked. "Derek," she said without hesitation. "From the gym. You were talking about me." She laughed, actually laughed. "Matthew, don't be paranoid. We were joking about how oblivious most guys are about meal prep. Relax." But I couldn't relax. Not after that. So I started paying attention. Really paying attention. And the more I watched, the more the pieces started falling into place. The late nights. The new lingerie she bought but never wore around me. The way she'd come home from the gym glowing, energized, like she just had the best hour of her day. Last night, I finally confronted her. "Are you sleeping with him?" I asked. She looked at me with this calm, almost pitying expression, and then she smiled. Not a guilty smile, not an apologetic smile. A smirk. "You can't prove anything, Matthew," Sabrina said. "Derek is just a friend. Just a friend." Those 3 words hung in the air like a challenge. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my office, door locked, staring at my phone, waiting for something I couldn't name. And then, at 11:47 p.m., it came. A message from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. The photo loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, like the universe wanted to give me one last chance to look away. I didn't take it. There she was. Sabrina. My wife of 12 years. Naked from the waist up, curled under white sheets I didn't recognize, her head resting on a bare chest that definitely wasn't mine. Derek Lansing, owner of premium fitness centers, personal training certifications probably framed on some wall somewhere, looking at the camera with a smug half-smile. Her hand was on his chest, possessive, comfortable, like it had been there before and would be again. The caption underneath read, "Friendship goals?" I stare at that question mark. Someone had a sense of humor. Someone thought this was funny. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I expected rage, expected to throw the phone across the room, put my fist through the drywall, something dramatic that would match the moment. But instead, I just sat there in the cold blue light of my office, feeling something inside me switch off. Not break. Switch off. Like a circuit breaker hitting its limit and simply shutting down to prevent further damage. I checked the number. Unknown. Blocked caller ID. But someone had taken this photo. Someone who knew both of them. Someone who wanted me to see it. I zoomed in on the background. The headboard was leather, tufted. The wall behind them was painted a dark gray. Not our bedroom. Not our house. Some hotel, probably. Or his place. The timestamp on the photo showed it was taken that evening. 4 hours ago. While I'd been sitting in our living room watching a basketball game, she'd been there. With him. I saved the image to 3 different backup locations, then forwarded it to an encrypted email account I'd set up years ago for business documents. Evidence doesn't mean anything if you lose it. Then I sat back and thought. Confronting her now would be the emotional play. Storm downstairs, throw the phone in her face, demand answers, listen to lies and justifications and tears that wouldn't mean anything. The nuclear option. Satisfying for about 10 minutes, and then what? She'd lawyer up, spin some story about how I was controlling or paranoid, paint herself as the victim of a suspicious husband. I'd seen it happen to other men. Good men who reacted instead of planned. No. This required precision. The same precision I used in my business. You don't build a successful manufacturing operation by making hasty decisions based on raw emotion. You gather data. You analyze. You execute. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. There's more. Meet me tomorrow. 2 p.m. Parkside Cafe on Glenwood. Come alone. I typed back. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, someone who knows what you're going through. Someone who wants the same thing you do. And what's that? I replied. The response came immediately. The truth. All of it. I looked at the photo again. Sabrina's face in the image, peaceful, content, happy in a way I hadn't seen her look in months. Maybe years. Downstairs, I heard the front door open. Her keys hit the bowl on the entry table. The same sound I'd heard thousands of times. Normal. Routine. Except nothing was normal anymore. And I was the only one who knew it. Matthew. She called up the stairs. You still up? I clear my throat. Yeah. Just finishing some work. Don't stay up too late, Sabrina said. And I could hear her moving through the kitchen, opening the refrigerator, pouring herself a glass of wine. You've been working too hard lately. I almost laughed. Working too hard. Right. I'll be down soon, I said. But I wouldn't be. I'd sit here in the dark, planning my next move, because the game had just changed. And this time, I was going to play it smart. Parkside Cafe sat on a quiet corner of Glenwood Avenue, the kind of place with exposed brick walls and overpriced lattes that tasted like regular coffee. I arrived 15 minutes early, took a table in the back corner with a clear view of the entrance, and waited. At exactly 2 p.m., she walked in. Andrea Lansing. I recognized her from the photos on Derek's gym website. The smiling woman standing next to him in the Our Story section, talking about their shared vision for wellness and community. She looked different in person. Thinner. Tired. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup. Wearing jeans and a plain gray sweater that had seen better days. She spotted me immediately, walked over without hesitation, and sat down across from me. Matthew Pierce, she said. Not a question, a statement. Andrea Lansing. I replied. She nodded once, then reached in her bag and pulled out a thick manila folder. She placed it on the table between us, but kept her hand on top of it. Before I show you what's in here, Andrea said, her voice quiet but steady, I need to know what kind of man you are. Are you going to lose your mind? Start making threats? Do something stupid that ends with police involvement? I met her eyes. I'm the kind of man who build a business from nothing by making smart decisions, not emotional ones. I'm angry, yes, but I'm not reckless. She studied my face for a long moment, then slid the folder across the table. I opened it. Inside were printouts, text message screenshots between Derek and Sabrina going back 8 months, hotel receipts, a reservation confirmation for a weekend trip to Asheville I'd never heard about, scheduled for next month while I'd supposedly be at an industry conference in Atlanta, photos of them at restaurants I'd never been to, laughing over wine, holding hands across tables. There's more, Andrea said. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then turned the screen toward me. A video. Derek and Sabrina entering a hotel room. The timestamp from 2 weeks ago. Another video of them leaving 3 hours later, her adjusting her blouse, him with his arm around her waist. How long have you known? I asked. For months, Andrea said. I found charges on her credit card for a boutique hotel. When I asked him about it, he said it was a client appreciation event. But the charges kept coming. Different hotels. Always on the same days of the week. Thursdays, I said, remembering Sabrina's late gym nights. Thursdays, Andrea confirmed. I hired a private investigator. Cost me $3,000 I didn't have, but I needed proof. Derek's careful. He uses cash when he can, pays for things through his business accounts to hide the trail. But he's not perfect. I looked through more documents. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals. Receipts from jewelry stores. A bracelet I'd seen Sabrina wearing last month. The one she said she'd bought herself as a reward for hitting her fitness goals. Why show me this? I asked. Andrea leaned forward. Because I'm tired of being the only one who knows. Because they think they're smarter than us. Because I want them to face consequences. Real consequences. Not just a screaming match and a divorce where they walk away and start over with someone else. What did you have in mind? I asked. I don't know yet, she said. But two people working together can accomplish a lot more than one person working alone. You have resources. I have information. And both of us have absolutely nothing to lose. I closed the folder. When's the last time you spoke to Derek about this? I haven't, Andrea said. He doesn't know I know. I play the supportive wife, smile when he comes home late, pretend I believe his excuses. Meanwhile, I document everything. Smart. Disciplined. The kind of strategic thinking I respected. I need 24 hours, I said, to process this and figure out our next steps. Andrea nodded. Fair. But Matthew, whatever we do, it has to be surgical. No emotion. No visible anger. We dismantle them, so quietly they don't realize what's happening until it's already done. I stood up, tucked the folder under my arm. That's exactly how I operate, I said. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to my plant, parked in my usual spot, and walked through the facility even though it was Saturday and only a skeleton crew was working. The familiar sounds of machinery, the smell of industrial lubricant and hot metal, the rhythm of production, it all helped me think clearly. In my office, I spread out Andrea's documentation across my desk. 8 months of deception. 8 months of my wife sleeping with another man while I paid our mortgage, funded her car, covered her health insurance, played the role of devoted husband. But what struck me wasn't the affair itself. It was the planning, the coordination, the sheer audacity of scheduling a romantic weekend getaway while sending me to a conference she knew I couldn't skip. That level of calculation required a certain kind of coldness I hadn't known Sabrina possessed. My phone buzzed. A text from Sabrina, grabbing lunch with Amy. Home by 5. Love you. Amy, her co-worker from the marketing agency. Except I'd seen Amy's name exactly 0 times in these text records, and I'd seen Derek's name 473 times. I opened my laptop and started building timeline. Every hotel charge. Every Thursday evening. Every weekend, I'd been out of town on business. The pattern was clear. Whenever I traveled, they escalated. 2-night stays. Expensive restaurants. My wife living a parallel life funded partially by my income. Then I did something I'd been avoiding. I pulled up our joint bank account statements for the past year. Sabrina had access to our savings, same as me. We'd always operated on trust. That trust, I now realized, had been a mistake. There. A withdrawal of $8,000 3 months ago. Another $6,000 2 months before that. Smaller amounts scattered throughout. $500 here, $700 there. All cash. All untraceable. Totaling nearly $23,000 over the past year. I called our bank, asked to speak with our account manager. David, I said when he picked up, it's Matthew Pierce. I need to make some changes to our accounts. Of course, David said. What can I help you with? I want to restructure our joint accounts, I said. Move the majority of our savings into a separate account with only my name on it. Keep the joint account operational, but limit the balance. That's a significant change, David said carefully. Does your wife know about this? Not yet, I said, but she will. Consider this a protective measure while we work through some financial planning. There was a pause. David had been our banker for 6 years. He was smart enough to read between the lines. "I can have that ready for you Monday morning," he said. "You'll need to come in and sign some paperwork." "I'll be there at 8," I said. After I hung up, I opened a new document on my computer and started typing. A list. Everything Sabrina and I own jointly. The house, purchased 5 years ago. Title in both names, but down payment from my business profits. Her car, financed through our joint account. The investment portfolio we'd built together, though my contributions have been triple hers. Then I did something that would have seemed paranoid a week ago, but now felt necessary. I logged into our insurance accounts, our utility bills, everything with both our names attached, and changed all the passwords. Documented every login, every change, every transaction. Andrea was right. This had to be surgical, and surgery required preparation, sterile environments, and steady hands. My phone rang. Sabrina. "Hey." I answered, keeping my voice normal. "Hi, babe," she said. "I'm actually running a bit late. Amy and I got talking. Might be closer to 6. "No problem," I said. "Take your time." "You're the best," Sabrina said. "See you soon." I hung up and looked at the photo Andrea had sent me. Sabrina and Derek in bed together, comfortable, shameless. They thought they were being clever. Thought they'd cover their tracks. They had no idea what was coming. Richard and Patricia Hartley's house sat in one of Raleigh's older neighborhoods, a brick colonial with mature oak trees, and a garden Patricia tended like it was her second career. I've been coming here for Sunday dinners since Sabrina and I started dating 13 years ago, back when I was just a guy with big dreams and a small machine shop. Now I pulled into their driveway, knowing things that would destroy them. Sabrina's car was already there. She'd texted me an hour ago, saying she'd arrive early to help her mother with dinner preparations. More likely she'd spent that hour texting Derek, making plans, living in her alternate reality. I grabbed the wine I'd brought, a nice Pinot Noir that Richard favored, and walked to the front door. Before I could knock, Patricia opened it, pulling me into one of her warm hugs that smelled like vanilla and lavender. "Matthew, sweetheart," she said. Come in, come in. Dinner's almost ready." Inside, the house looked exactly as it always did. Family photos on every wall, including our wedding portrait above the fireplace. Sabrina in her white dress, me in my tuxedo, both of us smiling like we believed in forever. Richard came out of his study, still wearing his reading glasses, hand extended for his usual firm handshake. At 68, he was retired but sharp, the kind of man who'd build a successful engineering career through attention to detail and honest work. Qualities I'd always respected. Qualities I'd thought he'd pass to his daughter. "Matthew," Richard said, gripping my hand. "Good to see you. How's business?" "Strong," I said. "Just landed a new contract with an agricultural equipment manufacturer out of Iowa. Should keep us busy through next year." "That's my boy," Richard said, clapping me on the shoulder. "You've built something solid. I'm proud of you." Those words hit harder than they should have. Proud of me. If only he knew what his daughter was doing behind my back, using the stability I'd built as cover for her affair. Sabrina appeared from the kitchen, wearing a blue dress I hadn't seen before, her hair styled in a way that seemed too elaborate for a family dinner. She kissed my cheek, a performance for her parents. "Hi, honey," she said. "You look tired. Long day at the plant." "Always is," I said, matching her tone perfectly. We sat down at dinner, the four of us around the dining room table that had hosted countless family meals. Patricia had made her signature pot roast, the same recipe she'd been perfecting for 40 years. Richard poured wine. Sabrina served vegetables. Everything normal. Everything a lie. "So," Richard said between bites, "Patricia and I have been talking about our estate planning. Getting older. Want to make sure everything's in order." I felt Sabrina stiffen slightly beside me. "We're meeting with our attorney next week," Patricia added. "Updating our trust documents. We want to make sure you two are taken care of if anything happens to us." "That's very thoughtful," I said carefully. "Well, your family," Richard said. "Everything we have, it'll go to Sabrina eventually. But we want it structured properly. Trusts, beneficiaries, all that legal stuff." I nodded, filing away every word. Trust documents. Beneficiaries. Legal structures that could be modified, adjusted, controlled if someone had the right access and the right motivation. "Actually," I said, "I've been thinking about estate planning myself. For the business. Making sure everything's protected and organized." Would you mind sharing your attorney's contact information? Might be good to use the same firm. Keep everything coordinated. Richard's face lit up. Absolutely. Gerald's been our attorney for 20 years. Solid guy. I'll email you his information tomorrow. Perfect, I said. Sabrina looked at me with a strange expression, something between suspicion and curiosity. Since when are you worried about estate planning? You're 41. Since I built a business worth protecting, I said evenly. It's called being responsible. Patricia smiled. That's exactly the kind of forward thinking we love about you, Matthew. Sabrina's lucky to have someone so practical. Lucky. The word tasted bitter. We finished dinner. I helped clear the dishes. Made small talk about Patricia's garden and Richard's golf game. Played the role of devoted son-in-law so perfectly that even I almost believed it. When we finally left, Sabrina walked ahead of me to our cars, her heels clicking on the driveway. That was nice, she said. They love you, you know. I know, I said. See you at home, Sabrina said, getting into her car. But as I drove away, I wasn't thinking about going home. I was thinking about trust documents, about attorneys, about legal structures that could be manipulated by someone with access and intent. And I was thinking about how Richard and Patricia's love for me might be the key to protecting myself from their daughter's betrayal. Monday morning, I sat in David's office at the bank, signing paperwork that restructured our financial life. The joint savings account that had held $83,000 now held $5,000. The rest had been moved to a new account bearing only my name, categorized as business reserve funds. She'll see this on the next statement, David warned. I know, I said. By then, it won't matter. Next stop, Gerald's law office. Richard had emailed me the contact information last night, just as promised. Gerald Henderson, estate planning and trust attorney, 40 years of experience helping families protect their assets. Gerald's office occupied the third floor of a historic building downtown. Wood paneling, leather chairs, the smell of old books and furniture polish. He greeted me with a handshake that matched Richard's, firm and confident. Any friend of Richard Hartley's is welcome here, Gerald said, gesturing to a chair. He mentioned you might be calling. I appreciate you seeing me on short notice, I said. Richard spoke highly of your business acumen, Gerald said. Said you built something impressive. Now, what can I help you with? I laid out a carefully edited version of the truth. Concerns about protecting business assets in the event of unforeseen circumstances. Questions about separating personal and marital property. Strategies for ensuring my company remain secure regardless of personal life changes. Gerald listened, taking notes, nodding occasionally. You're thinking about divorce, he said finally. Not a question. I'm thinking about protection, I said. He leaned back in his chair. Matthew, I'm going to be direct with you. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state. In a divorce, marital property gets divided fairly, not necessarily equally, based on various factors. Anything acquired during the marriage is generally marital property, unless you can prove otherwise. What about a business I built before the marriage, but grew during it? Complex, Gerald said. The increase in value during the marriage could be considered marital property. But if you can demonstrate that the growth came primarily from your efforts, your capital contributions, your decisions, you may be able to protect more of it. And personal assets purchased with business profits? Depends on how clearly you've maintained the separation between business and personal funds, Gerald said. I thought about the meticulous records I'd kept, every transaction documented, every contribution tracked. What about trust documents? I asked. Like the ones you're preparing for Richard and Patricia? Gerald's expression shifted slightly. Those are confidential client matters. Of course, I said. I'm asking generally. If someone had access to trust documents, could they modify them? Not legally, Gerald said. Trusts require specific procedures for modification. Trustee signatures, beneficiary notifications, proper documentation. Why do you ask? Just try and understand how these things work, I said, for my own planning. Gerald studied me for a long moment. Matthew, if you're considering any action that involves other people's estate documents, I strongly advise against it. That's not just unethical, it's criminal. Understood, I said, standing. Thank you for your time. As I left his office, my phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. Need to meet. Something new. Same place, for PM. I replied. I'll be there. But first, I had another stop to make. A visit to someone I hadn't seen in a decade. Someone whose ghost had just come back to haunt me in ways I never expected. Jennifer Cole. Jennifer Cole's apartment sat in a complex on the outskirts of Raleigh, the kind of place where single mothers lived on tight budgets and hope. I'd found her address through a simple internet search, discovered she'd moved back to North Carolina 6 months ago after a decade in Ohio. She opened the door on the third knock, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked older, obviously, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there when we worked together at Peterson Manufacturing. But her eyes were the same, dark brown and sharp. "Matthew Pierce," Jennifer said finally. "I wondered if you'd come. Can we talk?" I asked. She stepped aside, let me into a small living room furnished with budget basics. A boy sat on the couch, maybe 9 or 10, absorbed in a handheld gaming device. Dark hair, light brown eyes. My stomach tightened. "Ethan," Jennifer said, "go play in your room for a bit." The boy looked up at me with curiosity, then gathered his things and disappeared down the hallway. Jennifer sat down, gestured for me to do the same. "He's yours," she said without preamble, "if that's what you're here to find out." The words hit like a physical blow, even though I'd suspected since Andrea showed me the information she dug up on everyone connected to Sabrina and Derek. "How long have you known?" I asked. "Since the day he was born," Jennifer said. "Do the math, Matthew. We slept together exactly once, 10 years ago. I got pregnant. You were married. I decided not to complicate your life. You decided," I repeated. "You made that choice for both of us." "Yes," she said simply. "You were building your business, newly married, full of plans. What was I supposed to do? Destroy that?" I moved to Ohio, raised it myself, and we managed just fine. "Why come back now?" I asked. Jennifer looked toward the hallway where Ethan had gone. "Because he started asking questions about his father. Because I'm tired of lying. And because I saw your wife." I froze. "What?" "At a restaurant downtown 3 weeks ago," Jennifer said. "She was with a man who wasn't you. They were very cozy, very intimate. I recognized her from your Facebook photos years ago, back when you still posted happy couple pictures." "Did she see you?" I asked. "I don't think so," Jennifer said. "But it got me thinking. Here I am, protecting your secret, keeping your son hidden because I didn't want to mess up your perfect life. Meanwhile, your wife is out there making a fool of you. So this is revenge." I said. "No," Jennifer said firmly. "This is me being done with secrets. Ethan deserves to know his father. And frankly, Matthew, you deserve to know you have a son." I looked down the hallway again. A son. A 9-year-old boy who shared my DNA, who'd been living without a father because of choices I'd made a decade ago. "Does he know I'm here?" I asked. "Not yet," Jennifer said. "I wanted to talk to you first. See if you're the kind of man who runs, or the kind who steps up." I thought about Sabrina, about her betrayal, about the elaborate lies we'd both been living. And I thought about Andrea's warning that more complications were coming, things from my past that would surface at the worst possible time. "I need time," I said, "to process this, to figure out what's right." "Take your time," Jennifer said, "but not too much. That boy in there is going to be 10 soon, and he's going to have questions I can't keep deflecting." I stood to leave, then turned back. "Does anyone else know?" "Just my sister," Jennifer said. "And now you." "Keep it that way," I said, "at least until I figure out my situation at home." Jennifer's expression hardened slightly. "I'm not your secret to keep anymore, Matthew. I gave you 10 years of silence. Don't expect another decade." I drove back toward town, my mind spinning. A son, Brian, my best friend, sleeping with my wife. Sabrina's affair with Derek. The web of lies was expanding faster than I could contain it. My phone buzzed. "Andrea, at the cafe. Where are you?" I'd completely forgotten our 4 p.m. meeting. I checked the time. 4:17. I texted back, "On my way." Something came up. When I arrived, Andrea was sitting at her usual corner table, but she wasn't alone. A man sat across from her, mid-40s, wearing an expensive suit, his posture rigid with barely controlled anger. Andrea saw me and waved me over. "Matthew," she said, "this is Stephen Granger, my competitor, the man who'd been trying to steal my military contract for 6 months. We need to talk," Granger said, "because apparently we have a mutual problem." Stephen Granger looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in a week. His suit was expensive but rumpled, his tie loosened, dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "I'm going to be direct," Granger said once I sat down. "6 months ago, I paid Derek Lansing $50,000 to seduce your wife." The coffee shop noise faded to background static. Andrea was watching me carefully, probably worried I'd do something violent. "Keep talking," I said, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "I needed that military contract," Granger continued. "Your bid was better, your facility more efficient, your timeline more aggressive. I was going to lose, and losing would have meant laying off 30 employees. So I looked for leverage. And you chose my marriage," I said. "I chose distraction," Granger said. "I hired a private investigator who found out your wife went to Derek's gym. Derek had a reputation, let's say, for being open to certain arrangements. I approached him with a business proposition. Make her fall for him, destabilize your home life, wreck your focus during the critical bidding period." "And he agreed," I said. "For $50,000, yes," Granger said. "25 up front, 25 when you filed for divorce or withdrew your bid." I looked at Andrea. "You knew about this?" "I found out yesterday," Andrea said. "Found emails in Derek's account referencing the payment. I traced the source, found Granger's company, and contacted him directly." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked Granger. "Because Derek double-crossed me," Granger said, his voice bitter. "He was supposed to create chaos, not actually fall for her. He was supposed to keep it controlled, manageable. Instead, he got emotionally involved. Started making plans to leave Andrea, convinced Sabrina to leave you. Talking about them, starting a life together. They're in love," Andrea said flatly. "Or at least they think they are, which makes them dangerous. To all of us," Granger added. "Because Derek's getting greedy. He contacted me last week, said he wants another $100,000 to keep quiet about our arrangement. Blackmail. If I don't pay, he'll expose the whole scheme, ruin my reputation, destroy my business." I sat back, processing. My wife's affair wasn't just betrayal or even a business strategy. It was a conspiracy that had spiraled out of control. "What do you want from me?" I asked Granger. "Help," he said simply. "Andrea says you're smart, methodical. She says you've been gathering evidence, planning a strategic response. I need Derek dealt with, legally and permanently. And I need it done in a way that doesn't expose my involvement." "You mean you need me to destroy him while you stay clean?" I said. "Yes," Granger said without shame. "I'll pay you $200,000. Enough to cover your legal fees, compensate you for what I've done, and fund whatever revenge you're planning." "This isn't about money," I said. "Then what is it about?" Granger asked. "Justice," I said. "But not just for me. For Andrea. For everyone they've hurt." Andrea leaned forward. "I have a proposal. We combine everything we know. Granger's financial records proving the payment, my documentation of the affair, your evidence of asset theft and deception. We build a case so airtight that Derek and Sabrina can't escape it. And then," I asked. "Then we go public," Andrea said. "Not just divorce court. Social media. Their professional networks. We make sure everyone knows what they did." "That's social execution," I said. "That's consequences," Andrea corrected. "They chose to lie. They chose to manipulate. They chose to destroy marriages for money and thrills. We're just making sure the truth comes out." I looked at Granger. "What about your part in this? Your payment to Derek?" "I'll take my lumps," Granger said. "I'll admit I made a terrible decision driven by desperation. But I'll frame it as being victimized by Derek's escalating demands, not as the architect of the scheme." "You want me to help you play victim?" I said. "I want us all to survive this," Granger said. "And I want Derek Lansing to lose everything." My phone buzzed. A text from Sabrina. "Working late again. Don't wait up. Working late. With Derek. Planning their future while the man who paid for their affair sat across from me, offering blood money." "I need to think about this," I said. "Think fast," Andrea said. "Because I just found out they're planning to go public with their relationship next week. Valentine's Day announcement. They're going to tell everyone they fell in love and can't deny their feelings anymore. Valentine's Day. 3 days away. Then we have 72 hours, I said, to make sure their announcement becomes their confession." Valentine's Day arrived like Judgment Day. Andrea, Granger, and I had worked 72 hours straight, assembling everything into one devastating presentation. Bank records showing Granger's payment to Derek. Text messages proving the affair. Hotel receipts. Photos. Voice recordings Andrea had made of Derek bragging about his scheme. And screenshots showing Brian's involvement, his payments, his betrayal of our friendship. We chose a restaurant. The same upscale place where Sabrina and Derek planned to announce their love to a carefully selected group of friends. Andrea had hacked Derek's email, found the reservation, the guest list. 20 people. Mutual friends. Her co-workers. His gym clients. We arrived early. Rented a private dining room right next to theirs. Set up a laptop connected to a projector. At 7 p.m., they started arriving. Sabrina wore a red dress I'd never seen, probably bought with money she'd stolen from our account. Derek wore a tailored suit, looking confident, victorious. Brian showed up with his wife, playing the loyal friend. The irony was suffocating. I watched through a crack in the door as they settled in, ordered champagne, laughed, and celebrated their courage to follow their hearts. At 7:30, right when Derek stood to make his announcement, I walked in. The room went silent. "Matthew," Sabrina said, her face going pale. "What are you doing here?" "Attending a celebration," I said calmly. "Please, don't let me interrupt." "Derek, you were about to say something." Derek's confidence faltered. "This is a private dinner." "Is it?" I said. I gestured to Andrea, who entered behind me, followed by Granger. "Because I think everyone here deserves to know the full story before you make your big announcement." I opened the laptop, started the presentation. First slide, bank records showing Granger's $50,000 payment to Derek. 6 months ago, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room, Stephen Granger paid Derek Lansing to seduce my wife. Not for love, for business. To distract me from a military contract bid. Gasps around the table. Sabrina's hand flew to her mouth. It was supposed to be controlled chaos, I continued. Derek was supposed to create enough instability to ruin my focus, then disappear. But he got greedy, fell for the role he was playing, started actually planning a future with my wife. Next slide. Text messages between Derek and Sabrina, talking about leaving their spouses, starting fresh. Meanwhile, I said, my wife spent $23,000 of our joint savings on hotels, gifts, and getaways with a man who was literally paid to seduce her. I looked at Brian, and my best friend since childhood. He helped coordinate it, provided my schedule, my vulnerabilities, my trust. For $20,000. Brian stood up. "Matthew, let me explain." "Sit down," I said coldly. "I'm not finished." Next slide. Photos of Brian and Sabrina together, dated 2 years ago. Entering a hotel. Leaving separately. Brian's affair with my wife started long before Derek's, I said. 2 years of betrayal. 2 years of him sitting at my dinner table, drinking my beer, pretending to be my friend, while sleeping with my wife. Brian's wife stood up and walked out, her face frozen in shock. And the best part, I said, pulling up the final document. My mother died 3 days ago. She spent her last 3 months in hospice, calling me, begging to see me one last time. Every message intercepted by my wife, who told the nurses I was too busy to visit. Sabrina was crying now. "Matthew, please." She died thinking I abandoned her, I said, my voice breaking slightly before I controlled it. She died alone because my wife decided her affair was more important than my mother's final days. The room sat in stunned silence. "So yes," I said, "please make your announcement about true love. Tell everyone how you courageously followed your hearts. I'm sure it'll sound beautiful right after they learn you're both liars, cheaters, and in Derek's case, a prostitute willing to destroy a marriage for cash." I closed the laptop. "Enjoy your dinner." Andrea and I walked out together, leaving behind a room full of shocked faces and shattered illusions. The divorce took 4 months. Sabrina tried to fight it, claimed emotional distress, attempted to paint me as controlling and paranoid. But Andrea's evidence, combined with Granger's testimony and Brian's documented involvement, made her case impossible. She got nothing. The house was mine, purchased primarily with my business funds. The savings she'd stolen had already been moved to protected accounts. Her car was repossessed when she couldn't make payments. She moved back in with Richard and Patricia, who barely spoke to her after learning what she'd done to my mother. Derek's gym franchise collapsed within weeks. His clients fled once the story went viral on social media. Andrea's detailed documentation of his scheme, combined with proof he'd accepted money to seduce a married woman, destroyed his reputation. He filed for bankruptcy in March. Brian lost his pilot's license temporarily pending an ethics investigation. His wife divorced him, took their house, and moved to Florida with their kids. Last I heard, he was living in a one-bedroom apartment and working as a flight instructor. Stephen Granger kept his promise. He publicly admitted his role, framed himself as a desperate businessman who made a terrible choice, and donated $100,000 to a veterans charity as penance. His reputation took a hit, but he survived. We're not friends, but we maintain professional respect. Jennifer and I worked out a custody arrangement for Ethan. He knows I'm his father now. We're building a relationship slowly, carefully. He's a good kid, smart and curious, and he deserves better than the secret he was born into. Andrea and I started seeing each other 4 months ago. Not romance, not yet. Just two people who understand what betrayal costs, who rebuilt themselves from the same wreckage. She's pregnant now, 6 weeks along. Mine. We're taking it slow, but there's something solid forming between us, built on honesty instead of lies. Richard and Patricia apologized to me 17 times. I forgave them. They're not responsible for their daughter's choices. We still have Sunday dinners sometimes, though the table feels emptier now. My business won the military contract. Turns out, focus and clarity are powerful tools when you're not being actively sabotaged. We're expanding, hiring, growing into something bigger than I imagined. Some nights I think about my mother, about the time we lost because Sabrina chose herself over everything else. That pain doesn't fade, but I'm building something new now. A life based on truth. A family that might actually deserve the name. Sabrina texted me last week. Said she was sorry, that she made mistakes, that she hoped I could forgive her someday. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, aren't worth rebuilding.